Hey, welcome back to the Realm of History. We're here tonight for the Chapter 13 live review session. I'm ready to give you as much advice as I can to get you ready for the quiz tomorrow. A couple of things that I want to share with you. A little bit of the agenda right off the bat. We're going to talk about some key advice that I have for you. We'll take a look at some of the key terms. I've selected a few that I thought I had some questions about today from students. We'll take a look at a few more of the key figures that I want to make sure that you have a good understanding of. I'll have some AP advice and preparation tips, and then we'll take a look at some key pages from the textbook that I think will help you study tonight. And then we'll have, at the end, we'll have some question and answer time tonight. My key advice will be off the bat, so I'm going to move to that here next. One of the things I would say is that this is going to be a hard quiz, in my opinion. This is going to be one of the harder ones. The Middle Ages are very important to the AP exam. As you know, you have the topic 1.6 in AMSCO that goes along with AP preparation. So make sure that you're ready. One of my goals in this chapter is, as I've been talking, assessing your comprehension level. That's one thing that I'm worried about as your teacher. I'm worried about your ability to read and then respond to questions. So I am looking into how I can assess your comprehension, and I'm going to do that on this chapter. Remember that most of my quizzes are about 75-25. 75% of the questions come directly from the outline notes in my lessons, but yet another 20 to 25% are going to come directly from the reading. So if you did not do that reading, I would strongly urge you to make sure that you have read each section that was assigned and that you've read the AMSCO, because there will be short answer questions that are coming from that reading. Number two, one of the big things that I would say is, first of all, complete the review sheet. Second, complete all the assigned reading, as I just mentioned. Number three, read your outlines carefully. Number four, hey, remember to pray for the right things. We talk about this every week, but put things into perspective. Don't pray for success on this quiz or victory on the field of play or in the ice hockey arena, which is coming up soon, or on the courts. But rather, hey, ask the good Lord to give you guidance to protect you and your family and give them health and safety. That's really what you're looking for. Ask the good Lord to guide you to use the talents that he's blessed you with to the fullest, of course. So those are things that I would urge you and encourage you to pray for. And then also remember, every week I tell you, hey, say thank you to your parents. It's so important. If you're not doing that, please go and do that. You can go do it right now, or you can do it after the session, but make sure you're telling your parents thank you. And I want to add one thing. Recently, I've been going to some of the games, some of the volleyball games. I've been to I went to one of the regattas. And sometimes I see the parents there, and I talk to parents and then also grandparents. But hey, do me a favor, call your grandparents. Give them a call, tell them that you love them, say thank you to them. When I see your grandparents, it reminds me of my grandparents, and it tells me that, I don't have grandparents anymore. So for me, it reminds me, hey, you should use your time to the fullest. Make sure that you take advantage of the time that you have with your grandparents and your parents, and thank them and tell them that you love them. I think that that goes a long way when you can do that. Take the time to do that. Only takes a few minutes. Okay, now we're going to move into some of the key terms that I have planned for you, and we're going to start with one that I had a couple of questions about today, which is called canon law. So canon law is on your review sheet down toward the bottom of the key terms. It's about 3/4 of the way down. Canon law refers to church rules and laws that govern religious practices, such as the sacraments, like marriage. Okay, so canon law is regarding the church and rules and laws that you must follow if you are a practitioner in the Catholic Church at the time. This is still something that pertains to today. Okay, next, I would like to keep it on a religious theme from section 4, because the section 4 is the one that I assigned for you to read and comprehend. So I want to help you with that section the most, and that is called lay investiture. Lay investiture was actually very problematic for the Catholic Church. What it is, it's where bishops were being appointed by kings and other non-clergy members instead of the Pope. See, historically, the Pope was the one who is appointing bishops. And what happens here is kings, to try and take a power move or a power grab, they will start appointing bishops that are their friends, that are their relatives. So lay investiture refers to lay people. That means non-clergy members, people that do not work for the church, appointing bishops. This was problematic because a lot of times the bishops that were being appointed were corrupt. They were not qualified. Some of them could not read and write. So how could they really preach or understand how to interpret the Bible properly? And so this was a major issue. The popes tried to step in. We saw that the Pope and Henry IV later had a big to-do about this. And these are some of the things that I want you to know regarding lay investiture. But technically speaking, it's where kings mostly were appointing bishops when it should have been the Pope. Okay. One of the ways that the popes could strike back against kings who were practicing lay investiture was excommunication, but also I think a steeper way that they could try to settle these issues was called the interdict, or the interdict, you could call it. This is where the Pope actually steps in and takes away the ability to provide sacraments to the people in a designated area. So this could be an entire kingdom. Like we learned about the Franks, if the Pope wanted to ban sacraments, he could impose the interdict on France. And this would mean that none of the people that live in that country or that realm or that kingdom could receive any of the sacraments, could not be baptized, couldn't take communion, couldn't get married in the church. People are going to get angry about this. People are going to get angry because this is the belief. You practice these sacraments and that leads to salvation. That's how you get to heaven. So this makes people angry with the king. They are mad at the king because it's something that the king has done to anger or get the Pope's disapproval. So what this will do is this will cause rebellion, this will cause protesting, this would cause revolt until the king will settle the issue with the Pope. So the interdict, I think, is a very strong power move that the church has in their pocket or had in their pocket during the Middle Ages. Okay, since I mentioned lay investiture and I also mentioned clergy, these are terms that are not in your review sheet, but I wanted to make sure that you understand what they actually mean. Clergy or clergy members refer to those people that work for the church, such as a priest, a bishop, and or an abbot. Now, an abbot is somebody who runs a monastery. We learned about monasteries, but I did not talk too much about abbots. It was in the reading, but abbots are those that run monasteries. Now, a key thing, I know this will be a question on the quiz tomorrow. The priest on that list right there is the lowest ranking member of the clergy. Okay, so the priest is like your local authority, but there are higher levels above the priest. Lay person, or the word lay, is referring to Christians that do not actually hold positions in the church, that do not actually work for the church. So they're the general population. But a king could also be considered a lay person because he's not a clergy member. Okay, so that's why lay investiture is termed as it is. All right, next, I think those are some of the key terms that I thought would be confusing or that I wanted to highlight with you. Of course, if you have questions about other ones, I will open up at the end for a question and answer session like we always do. But right now, I want to take a look at the key figures that I've selected for you to take into account. One that we had a couple of questions about today in class was Benedict. Benedict is on the review sheet twice, and that's on purpose. You'll see Benedict down toward the center portion of the key figures, and then down again at the very last mentioning of the key figures where it's Benedict and Scholastica. So I'll talk about both of those things here briefly. But when we take a look at Benedict, Benedict was a monk. He eventually worked his way up to becoming an abbot, and that's a leader of a monastery once again. He wrote books. He was famous for writing rule books on how monasteries should be run. He became the foremost power on, or foremost authority, I should say, on how to lead a monastery. He had the experience in doing so, and a lot of other monasteries followed his teaching to perfect that. So that's what I want you to know in a basic sense about Benedict. Next, I'm going to move into Pope Gregory I. When I taught about Pope Gregory I, I told you in the lesson that he expanded the power of the papacy, which is the Pope's office or the power of the Pope. And he did this through use of secular means, which is referring to worldly, not so much religious, and he increased what is called the secular role. For example, what we learned about is he took church revenue and he used it to do things like fix roads for the purposes of trade and travel and raise private armies. These are things that popes generally didn't get involved in. These are not really part of the religious sector, but he also took the money from church revenue and helped the poor, which is what it is meant to do. Okay, so these are some things that you want to know about Pope Gregory, but the big picture is he expands the power of the Pope's office by embracing the secular role. So you need to know what secular means. It means worldly, not so much involved in religion. The next term is going to be, or the figure, I'm sorry, is going to be Henry IV. Henry IV was the German emperor who was excommunicated by Pope Gregory VII over the issue of lay investiture. So I just kind of highlighted how lay investiture could be problematic. These two went at it, and the Pope actually excommunicates Pope Gregory. This means if you're excommunicated, that you cannot partake in the sacraments. You cannot receive Holy Communion. You cannot get married in the church. It basically takes away your rights to membership in the church and your rights to receive the sacrament. So it was a very serious punishment that was imposed on people during the Middle Ages. It doesn't happen very often anymore. I have not read or heard about an excommunication in recent times. Okay, next on my list of key figures and ideas is the one that I said was the last one, Benedict and Scholastica. Benedict and Scholastica were actually a team, a brother and sister team. Obviously, Benedict worked in monasteries and Scholastica worked in convents. So they had very similar roles. I think Benedict was a better writer, so he wrote more of the rule books, but Scholastica is also a saint, so they're both saints. But Scholastica was more involved in being an authority in convents, which are places where nuns and females would spend their time devoting their lives to God. Okay, the next order of business on my live agenda list is that I wanted to, of course, go over with you some pieces of AP advice. Obviously, you know that there will be an AP portion on tomorrow's quiz. So I'm going to talk to you about that right now. My advice is to understand the following themes, okay, on the AP portion. The first theme that I want to share with you, and feel free to write this down in your review sheet, is that the prompt tomorrow for the 3 multiple choice questions will be an image. We have not done that yet on our AP portions. We did see that in the DBQ, which you wrote recently. So you have some experience with that. But the prompt will be an image. It will be an image of a female who is paying homage to a male in basically an exemplification of the feudal society. So understanding how feudalism worked, the ins and outs of feudalism, which is really what this whole chapter was about, will help you to be able to answer the multiple choice questions that are coming your way on tomorrow's AP portion. I would say that the content portion has some difficult measures. I actually honestly think that the AP portion is one of the easier ones of the year, though. It's pretty straightforward, okay? It's not entirely too tricky. The multiple choices that you have are pretty straightforward on this one. Now, some terms to write down that are related to the AP multiple choice questions. Here they go. Number 1, feudalism. Like I already said, understanding how feudalism works. One of the key things that you have to know about feudalism is it is an example of decentralized government. Centralized government is where there is one controlling power, like a king that controls the entire realm, okay? However, feudalism is where the king divides up control of his realm, doesn't he? And he passes out pieces of land where lords and nobles are now responsible to protect those pieces of land. That is a primary example of a decentralized form of government. I think in understanding that concept, that's going to help you with one of the multiple choice questions on the AP portion. Now, understand that feudal society, the relationship between lords and knights, the king and lords and vassals, like we've learned, it's all about military protection. That's really the big picture goal. You're trying to gain a greater sense of military protection, mostly from outside invaders. But as we learned, lords were constantly at war with each other. So there was a lot of wheeling and dealing going on between lords. Like lords would try to create an alliance with other lords to say, hey, why don't we team up in case the bad guy over there across the hall, you know who I'm talking about, if he tries to attack us, then we'll be ready, right? It would be like in the Ark. It'd be like me and Mr. Klaus and Senor Mesa teaming up together into an alliance to protect from an outside invasion from maybe the Vota or from the CAC coming after us. So that would be an example of what lords or ladies might be doing diplomatically to protect their manors and land parcels, or fiefs, as you could say in this chapter. Okay, I also wanted to mention that you should probably be focused in a little bit deeper here. Remember, not everything in the AP world in my class is going to smack you right in the face. Sometimes you really have to think critically. So what I want you to focus on is, hey, why was feudalism necessary in the first place? Remember, it's because the king can't protect all of the land that he has. It's all about military protection once again. In this case, you need to rely on what you also read in Amsco. It talked about the feudalism. It talked about feudal society. I also introduced to you the feudal pyramid, and I said you need to be ready to reproduce that. This may be your opportunity to do that on the AP portion to help supplement your answer, okay? Also, the manor system. I talked about how it was, how life was on a manor if you were a serf, if you were a lord, what are the duties, the rights and obligations that you had to fulfill. You're going to need to know that for the AP short answer question, because that is part of what was mentioned in the Amsco reading. If you haven't done the Amsco reading on topic 1.6, as I mentioned today, you really need to do that. It's extremely important, okay? Most of my AP classes, I have 1 second hour class. They have my class before seminar. So they're at a disadvantage, and I always try to help out my AP class that is in that situation, second hour. So they get some benefits because they have to take that quiz paper first. And you all in the later hours definitely ask them how the quiz was, what's on the quiz. Not all of you. I take that back, but some of you do. Now, on that note, the girls tomorrow do not have seminar. They have mass. So the boys will have the advantage tomorrow because they're going to be able to study a little bit more in their seminar class. So we'll kind of see how that plays out statistically. We'll chart that out and see how it works. Okay. Now, I think those are my pointers for the AP portion of the quiz tomorrow. I want you to be ready for that. That's going to be, there's going to be 3 multiple choice questions and 2 short answers. So each question will be worth 2 points for a total of 10. Okay. And remember that the content portion of the quiz is going to be 40 questions, and that is going to be for half a point each. Okay. 40 questions, multiple choice and matching for 40 points each. Okay. What I want to do just for a brief second, I want to share my screen with you. I want to pull up the World History Patterns of Interaction book, and I want to scroll through some of the very important pages that I think you should focus on. So bear with me, and I see there's a lot of comments. I will then go ahead and answer all of the questions there. But please, yes, Ryan, you're right. Please do me a favor and say hello in the chat. This will help me also create a statistical breakdown of who's been coming and how well they did on the quiz and who's not here. So just say hello. That's all you got to do, just so I know that you were present tonight. Okay, I see that there's about 60 of you, those are great numbers. I'd like to see 95, of course, but hey, everybody has a life, right? So we got to make sure that we're being here now, but let me know that you're here in the chat. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share, and I'm going to pull up the file of the textbook for you, and we can kind of go from there. Okay, we should be in good shape right now. All right, here's what we have. We have the textbook showing on the screen, and this is an important map here, first off, right? Yes, okay, I think we are in good shape. The map here shows you all of the Germanic tribes. You know, when we started this chapter, I said there were so many invasions from Germanic tribes. This map shows you all of those different Germanic tribes. Down here in Africa are the Vandals. They were considered a Germanic tribe. Remember, it doesn't really have to do with being from Germany. The Romans just referred to anybody who was a barbarian or outside the Roman Empire as a Germanic tribe. The Visigoths were really influential down here in Spain. The Sueves, the Basques. Here's the Franks, who were a Germanic tribe who became a kingdom. The Burgundians, the Ostrogoths, right, modern day Italy. You've got all different groups, the Saxons, the Angles, the Britons, the Scots. A lot of the modern countries today are named after these Germanic tribes. The Vikings come from up here, okay, up here in Scandinavia, right? So these are all the different groups. The Bavarians, when you think about the term Bavarian Germany, right, or a Bavarian town, like if you've ever been to Frankenmuth, that's kind of a symbolic Bavarian style town. Those are all related to this Germanic tribe known as the Bavarians. Do you have to memorize all of these? No, but it might help you answer questions, maybe in the multiple choice, maybe in the matching, definitely in the AP short answer, okay? All right, scrolling down. I don't mean to make you dizzy, but I do need to scroll down to get to some of the pages on the online book. Okay, here's Benedict and Scholastica. This is on page 355. They're the last key figures on your review sheet. So this will give you as much as you need to know about each of them, okay? On top of what I already told you in this review. This map right here is showing you Charlemagne's empire, and then the red lines show you what happens after the Treaty of Verdun in 843. Remember, it was divided into 3 separate kingdoms. The 3 sons of Louis the Pious, or Louis the Pious. The West Frankish kingdom was ruled by Charles the Bald. The Central Kingdom was taken by Lothair, and then the East Frankish kingdom was taken by Louis the German, okay? So we talked about those guys, but these are the areas that they eventually took over. Okay, we're still making our way down the list here. And here is a Viking longboat. Remember, we learned about those different attacks. Remember, the goal of the Vikings was to move in quickly, take treasure, and then go back to Scandinavia. One of the reasons that they stopped doing their raiding was because agriculture improved back in Scandinavia. So the reason they were coming to do their raids was to take treasure. And then, of course, sometimes they would take agricultural goods too. But once agriculture starts to improve up here in Scandinavia, they don't really have to make as many invasions. But here in purple, you see all the different routes and areas of Europe that they invaded. The green shows you the Magyar invasions. And then the yellow shows you the invasions of the Muslims. And here's where they were stopped, right here at the Battle of Tours, modern day France. This is a feudal pyramid. This is not the one that I want you to reproduce tomorrow, though. Remember, I showed you in the notes for section 2, the one that I want you to reproduce if you are asked tomorrow. This is what a medieval manor looked like. This is probably a really cool page if you're really interested in how a manor worked. This would be an example of a manor, okay? It's got a great key. The manor house is right here. That could be also called the castle. That's number 1 on that list. I don't know if you can see my cursor. That's okay if you can't. But the numbers are there. You can kind of take a look at, hey, where the peasants would live. There's a village down here. It says the village. Here's all the fields that you would have to work. You have a mill that grinds grain. Over here on the right where it says A's, B's, and C's, and D's, those are the small gardens that the Lord had to provide to the serfs so that they could produce crops of their own, and they charged them a portion of that crop in a tax. Okay. All right, the age of chivalry, there's not a whole lot to take a look at there. We kind of learned about chivalry and what it was. This page I highlighted with you. I said this was my favorite page, 366 in the book, because I told you to study this about how castles would defend and how siege weapons and tactics were utilized against those said castles. Key film Braveheart. That's a really good film which depicts the Middle Ages. It's kind of gory. This is the primary source that I talked about, that I said you should read between how a noble woman was and how a peasant woman was and the differences there. And then section 4, I assigned to you. So I'm not going to really go over any pages there, but understanding, where was the Holy Roman Empire, kind of modern day Germany, right? Basically the old Roman Empire is kind of the same area there. Those are some of the key things that you're going to need to know from the textbook. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing now. We'll come back to the normal screen. I'm glad that you are all here. Okay, I'm going to scroll back up. I see a lot of folks saying hello. I want to say hello to you. Thanks for joining. And right now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into the question and answer session. So I see some questions already formulating. So I'm going to answer those. I'm going to go down the list here. I'll pull some of those up, and we can go from there. Oh boy, Kirk has some evidence of Janda being on the Snapchatty in class today. Let's see what that's looking like. Hey, there's Janda. That's a picture war right there, Kirk. You were involved in the picture wars. That's kind of cool. But Janda, you were on the Snapchatty. That's not a good sign. I did warn everybody to stay off the Snapchatty, and I did also say stop taking pictures of your eyes and sending them out. That to me is kind of weird. I don't understand that. Maybe I'm a little bit old. Maybe I'm dating myself. But the pictures of the eyes, fellas, I'm a little bit worried about that. That kind of scares me. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Okay, let's get into the questions. Oh boy, let's see. We got a lot of comments. Okay, here's one. Ashton. Could do Benedict and Scholastica again. Okay, I did those, but I'll do it again. I'll do it again just in case everybody missed it. Benedict was a monk. He eventually becomes an abbot. And one of the things that you're going to want to know about him is that he writes rule books for how monasteries were run. He and his sister, okay, so that's what you need to know about Benedict. His sister was Scholastica. She did sort of the same thing as Benedict, but in convents, okay? So she kind of became an authority on how to run a convent, but followed sort of the same rules and laws that Benedict wrote about in his books. Johnny C says, can I do Eleanor of Acquitane? Of course. Eleanor of Aquitaine really was one of the most famous women of the Middle Ages. And really, it's primarily because she was Queen of England. That becomes a huge deal. If you're a queen, I mean, that's a big deal. But she was well sought after by many princes, many kings that were not married yet, because what they were trying to get is that land, which was Aquitaine. That was a portion of France. So just by marrying Eleanor, you would gain on top of the territory that you ruled, okay, you would then gain this territory in France, which is a very well sought after land. So that was a big deal. And that was why a lot of people were actually trying to woo her and marry her. Yes, the GOAT, I think that is Ryan Mooney, Go Irish. He is a Division I baseball commit to Notre Dame. I'm a huge Notre Dame fan, so thanks, Ryan, for attending. Sign of strength. Master McShane, yes. Dishonesty, I agree with you. After second hour, it seems like there's some people asking some questions. I think that's also part of the norm in education. It's hard to stop that one. That kind of goes on. Okay, good question right here by Nick. What should we know about Louis the Pious? Well, he was the son of Charlemagne. Okay, he was the only surviving son of Charlemagne, so his father was a big deal. And then he makes the very bad mistake that we've learned about several times in our class of dividing his realm to his three sons. His three sons were Lothair, Louis the German, and Charles the Bald, right? Those old school gangster names. So those three ballers fought over the best territory until the Treaty of Verdun basically divides it into three separate kingdoms and weakens the entire empire. So that would be what I would focus on knowing about Louis the Pious. Okay, we got Daniel on Will's account. I just saw a post by Will from college. It looks like he's doing really well. Fantastic. Pia Z, Queen Zammers with a little picture war action there. That is a weird looking fruit. It's nothing else. It's nothing other than that, but good picture war, sign of strength. Could you explain what we need to know about the Carolingian dynasty? Okay. What you'll need to know by definition of the Carolingian dynasty, it is this series of rulers from the same family, starting with Charles Martel and Pepin the Short. So in essence, it goes Charles Martel, then it goes to Pepin the Short, who was his son. Okay. Then Pepin the Short had two sons. You had your boy Charlemagne and Carloman. Okay. Carloman died at a very young age, so Charlemagne's the next baller. After Charlemagne, it's Louis the Pious, who I just went over. And then you've got Louis the German, Lothair, Charles the Bald. That's really all you need to know. You just need to know the key figures, and you need to know that they ruled the Frankish Empire or the Frankish Kingdom. Okay. Lots of hellos from a lot of ballers in the realm. Thank you. I appreciate you. I'm hoping that you do well on the quiz tomorrow. Yes, a lot of ballers are joining in here. Ozog, terrible. Terrible. Inappropriate. Okay, here's a question by Nick again. What should we know about Pepin the Short? Well, if you want me to go in more detail about Pepin the Short really expanded the power of the Frankish Empire. His big deal was he wanted to make an alliance with the Pope. And so it's with him that we really get religion and empire starting to combine. Not entirely, but they're starting to work together because he helped the Pope stop an invasion. So Pepin expands the power of the realm by getting involved with the Pope and the Catholic Church, and then he create kind of an alliance. Okay. Charlemagne is the real baller that created this as an official Holy Roman Empire. But I think you need to give Pepin the Short a little bit of credit because he kind of started that show. And your guy Charlemagne sort of finished it. Ooh, unfortunately, we got to give out a crew here. It is Picture Wars. It is Janda. You got the crew. You can't tell people to shut up. That's just derogatory. It's not very nice. We want to be nice to each other. Okay, so that'll be crew worthy. You're back on the crew captain. Can I go over Pope Leo? Of course. Pope Leo, Johnny K. Pope Leo is the Pope that crowned Charlemagne the emperor. So I just kind of introduced this. I said that, hey, you had this real combination between the Franks and the Catholic Church. And that happens when Pope Leo crowns Charlemagne, what we call Holy Roman Emperor. Okay. Otto that you learned about in section 4 was really the first. Otto and Frederick are really the first two to call it the Holy Roman Empire. But this was symbolic when Pope Leo crowns Charlemagne Holy Roman Emperor, because what it did is it combined the power of the Germanic people with the power of the church in an official measure. Okay. All right, let's see. Master Eli, buddy, in the realm. Yes, I like that action. Very good. Okay, good question by Ava. Ava says, can I go over Leif Erikson? Yes, Leif Erikson was a Viking. And one of the reasons that I introduced Leif Erikson is because I told you that the Vikings were not just warriors. They were mainly warriors, but they also were explorers. They also were farmers. They also were traders. So, there's kind of more than meets the eye with the Vikings. I don't want you to just think of them as barbaric folks. I mean, they were pretty barbaric. Let's not lie about that. But they accomplished quite a bit in exploration. Leif Erikson is believed to have discovered the Americas about 1,000 years before Columbus. As I said in class, we just don't have so much evidence on that. We have found Viking coins and Viking weapons in the area of Nova Scotia, all right, in Newfoundland, Canada. We just don't have a whole lot of solid evidence. We know for a fact that Columbus was in the Americas in 1492. We have documents of that. But with the Vikings, we just don't have a whole lot to go off of. So that's what I would say you should know about Leif Erikson, major Viking explorer. Okay, Ava? Good question. Graves, how we doing tonight? Ozog, yeah. We did talk about that, John. Yep, we did talk about John the King, who was the brother of Richard Lionhearted. Yes, we did. Oh, here's a good question right here. Alex, sign of strength. What is the definition of tithe? Tithing is basically what you do when you go to Mass on Sunday. When you put the donation in the parish basket, that is a form of tithing. Back in the Middle Ages, you were expected to pay a church tax, which was a tithe, of 1/10 or 10% of your weekly income. So if you made $100 a week, you were expected to put $10 in the basket. They didn't make currency. So what they had to pay to the church was in the form of crops. Like if you were a serf, you worked on a manor, you had to give probably 20% of your crops to the Lord. You had to give 10% of the crops that you grew to the church. And then the other 60 or 70% was for you and your family. Okay. So that's an example of paying tithes to the church. Ashton, I'm not sure what you want to know about your boy Charlemagne. Basically, he was Holy Roman Emperor. He created an empire that was about the same size as the old school Roman Empire in Europe. He was an imposing figure. He was much taller. He was 6'4", so he was much taller than the average person at that time. And he also wanted to revive education. That was important to him. And he expanded the empire also. So those are some of the things that I would say you should know about Charlemagne, if I take that question correctly. Emma, Louis the Pious was Charlemagne's only surviving son. And I talked about how he divided his realm or empire to his 3 sons. And then they fought over it until it was resolved by the Treaty of Verdun. Ryan wants to know feudalism. Yeah, feudalism is a political system which is based on rights and obligations, where the king of the empire or the kingdom or the realm, you could say, would divide up his land, give it out to nobles and lords in exchange for their military protection. To accomplish that military protection, those nobles and lords would have to hire or persuade knights to create a contract with them, and the knights would be the soldiers that would actually defend the land for the lord, which in turn was actually defending the king's overall land. Okay. Oh boy, these eye pictures are not good. Janda, yes. Okay, let's see. Alexia. I thought interdict and excommunication were punishment used if canon law was broken, rather than having to do with lay investiture. Can you explain that again? Okay, usually, Alexia, they are used for if canon law is being broken. However, we do have a case from section 4 where the Pope steps in and excommunicates your guy Henry IV. Pope Gregory VII excommunicates Henry IV of Germany over the issue of lay investiture. So that is what I was talking about. That would be my explanation of what I meant by that. Okay. Jay Simpson wants to know excommunication. Excommunication is where you take away a person's right to membership in the church. So you basically ban them from being able to receive the sacraments, Josh. They can't get married in the church. They have done something to break canon law. So this is a punishment. Sometimes excommunication, they could be reinstated. But technically speaking, could they attend mass? Probably. Or were they technically supposed to be able to take communion? No. Now, did they have a scroll of everybody's name? That's questionable. But usually the people that were excommunicated were pretty big figures, so people would know who they were. Thanks, Gannon. I appreciate that. Ashton, I believe you. I understand. Kirk has not been paying attention. He's been worried about the picture wars. But yeah, I did go over Pope Leo. Pope Leo is the one who crowned Charlemagne Holy Roman Emperor. Okay, he crowned Charlemagne, which was a symbolic gesture because it combined the power of the church with the power of the Frankish kingdom. Pia Z, the Treaty of... Oh, picture wars. Look at that. Oh, my donkeys. Okay, we've got... What is the Treaty of Verdun? The Treaty of Verdun is, of course, a peace agreement that settled the fighting of the 3 sons of Louis the Pious. So it divided the Frankish Empire into 3 separate kingdoms. In 843, this happens, and this severely weakens the Frankish Empire. It never was what it once was, and this was due to Louis the Pious not passing down his realm or his reign to his oldest son, which is what you're supposed to do. He tried to divide it among the 3, and then they fought over it. It was ended by the Treaty of Verdun. Okay, I'm making my way down. Lark says, this is a good question, Larkin. What is the Merovingian dynasty? Okay, so there's the Carolingian dynasty, which starts with Charles Martel and Pepin the Short. The Merovingian dynasty starts with your boy Clovis. So it's the line of Frankish rulers from the same family, starting with Clovis. Okay. I had on the board, also part of section 2, I told you to copy it down or take a picture. We had Clovis. I'm sorry, I should go this way. We had Clovis, then we had Clodomir, then we had Kildebert, then we had Theoderic. And I'm not making those names up. Those were their names. You should be able to find that in your notes on section 2. There won't be a question about the Merovingian dynasty except for about Clovis. So Clovis is the key figure that you're going to need to know from the Merovingian dynasty. Hannah, oh my, who is that in the picture war? I want to know who that is. That's a bad one right there. Okay, do we need to know any specific dates for anything? No, I usually don't quiz you on specific dates. That's a promise that I made you at the beginning of the year. Would knowing dates help you in any way? Yeah. But are you going to have to name any specific dates? No. Okay. Johnny K, was Charlemagne a leader of the Franks? Yes, he was. Charlemagne was the ruler of the Franks. Yes, one of the rulers of the Franks. That's correct. Oh, look at this. See, now, ballers of the realm, boys and girls. What did I say? I said some people glorified Genghis Khan. This is one of my former students. He's probably joking, but I'm just telling you. No, Genghis Khan is not a key baller in my book. I told you this. Gannon is joking. He is not being serious. He is one of my former students. I'm very upset with him. But I want to make this point clear. Genghis Khan is not a key baller in my book. We know what he did. We know how ruthless he was. Yes, he accomplished a lot, but I don't think the good outweighs the bad. Okay, we've talked about that several times. Master Gannon, sign of weakness by you. Okay, Johnny C says, what should we have for the Holy Roman Empire? The Holy Roman Empire is basically the combination of Germanic tribes that have become kingdoms in France and Germany, combining with the power of the Catholic Church in Rome. That is the Holy Roman Empire, okay? Germanic tribes in Germany and France, combining their kingdoms with the power of the Catholic Church in Rome. Oh, okay. Let's see. Josh says, how would... Is that Kirk sleep in class? Oh, that's sign of weakness, Kirk. That might be... If that's Kirk, I'm not allowed to give crew for another class. So I gotta reference that. I might have to think about that. But that's a sign of weakness too. I love all of my students. I don't mean to be mean, but I love all of you. This is just kind of fun. How would outsiders know if a serf ran away? Like, would there be wanted signs? That's a really tough one. What I will say is that some cities, Josh, had a scroll of population, who's coming in and out. So some cities did have people keeping record, all right, of who was coming in and out. So a city outside of the manor probably wouldn't know who a serf was. And if they were coming in the city, they may or may not let them in. However, they would write their name or some characteristic down about them to get entered into the city. And then if a knight or somebody else came looking for that serf, there would be record of it. And then they would know that they were in that city and they would search for them and then bring them back to the manor. So I do know that to be true. But it would be very difficult to keep tabs on this. No doubt about it, Josh. Okay. That's a good question. Good thinking there. All right, I've got a question by Kirk. Clovis united the Holy Empire with the Franks. Correct. Okay, Clovis is a Frank, but remember the Franks were a Germanic tribe. And so what Clovis does is he brings all the different tribal associations together into one empire/kingdom. Yes, Clovis is the first to do that. That is correct, Ryan. Okay, hey, I made it through all of the questions. We've been on for 45 minutes. I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes if there are any other questions. I would love to help you out and answer them for you. So go ahead and get those into the chat, if you may. While I'm waiting for any future questions, I do want to pull something up real quick. I wanted to let you know, hey, here's something that I want to share with you. Thank you, students, for joining tonight. But also I'm really blessed because I have I really love my job, and I really love all of my students. I love all of you, and I care about you very much. And I hope that you understand that the reason that I'm on here doing this is to help you. I want you to succeed, but it comes from a lot of care. And not only do I care about your grades, I'm not really so concerned about your grades, but more about your overall success as human beings. And that's why I always, in my key advice, I try to tell you, hey, say thank you to your parents and make sure that you're doing the right things. But for me, I just want to say thank you to you. It's kind of cool to see how devoted you are and how much you study and how much you prepare. I hope you're doing that in all of your classes. That, of course, is my motto of be here now. So wherever you're at, whatever class you're studying, I want you to be here now at all times so that you can be a champion. Okay. So those are some of my final comments. I'm going to go back to see if there's any questions coming my way. Okay. I'm just seeing some Leaf Gang comments, which is funny stuff. So I hope that you have a great night. Make sure that you study. Make sure you read your notes. I want to thank you once again for joining. I will stay on for just a few more minutes, and just in case anybody has a question. But hey, you're free to go for the night. Make sure that you've done your reading. Make sure you say thank you to your parents. Send it. I don't want you to send a text to your grandparents this late, but hey, call them. Call them tomorrow night. Call them over the weekend. Let them know that you love them, and let them know how influential they've been for you. That's important. Okay, have a wonderful night, ladies and gentlemen, and good luck on the quiz tomorrow. I appreciate all of you, and I want you to do very well. I love you too. I love you too. Thank you. Thank you. I'm reading some of the comments. Thank all of you. Okay. All right. Well, we were on for 47 minutes. That's a pretty good time. I think that's a good number. We've been averaging about 53, so 47 is pretty darn good. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. I see a lot of thank yous. I appreciate that. But once again, I'm appreciative of you. That's, I think, more important. And I want you to have a wonderful night. I am out. Peace. God bless.